Your business is in sync with LiveSync. This webinar is powered by LiveSync Accounting and Xero Accounting Software. Introducing Attorney Dexter Destajo.
So to start up setting up in Xero, I would ask you to go from your settings here. By the way, this same settings would show up under advanced here later, okay? So we would start with your organizational details. You would want to put in your logo. So I'll browse and get one logo from our file. So let's select this logo. Select your organization type, enter your trade license number. So maybe that is 123654. Your description would be, okay, a full text. Then you'd want to put your address. Then let's say Dubai. Take note, in our example, we're using a Dubai company here. And then I'll just completely copy that and then select United Arab Emirates. And then I would put my name as the contact person of this company, okay? I'll copy it to be the same as my postal address. And then I would use United Arab Emirates and I use a dummy number, okay? And then I'll use my own email, and then you can put your website here if you'd want, okay? You can also put other things here like your fax number, your mobile, Skype, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Google+. You can add all this information. So now we are ready with completing our organizational details. We save it, okay. Next step would be, again, I would go back to organizational settings, and then I'll start with my financial settings, okay? So you can switch to organizational to advanced settings. So we would do advanced setting. Let's start first with our financial setting. So we're just going to do a review. So your financial setting would tell us that this is your currency, okay? And this would tell us also what country you are from. This also tells you about your financial year. So again, as I said, if you're using calendar or fiscal period, you can select or change that if it's different, okay? Now, we set up your sales tax. We use accrual basis because that is what we're doing in UAE. Then I'll put a tax number. So let's say the tax number would be 51, and then your tax ID display name. So why this is important? Because this is how it will be showing later in your invoice. When you print the invoice, UAE VAT law would require that your TRN must be displayed in your invoice. Now, since in UAE we're doing quarterly, we select quarterly here. We keep the default for your tax default, all tax exclusive, lock dates. Later, once you are actively using Xero, this is where you can come back and lock certain period of date so that no one can edit and delete accidentally your data prior to the lock date. This is your time zone because we are using AED. So that's financial setting, right? Next would be doing let's go back to organization settings. Next would be creating our invoice template. Okay, now in Xero, you can do two types of template, what we call a standard, which is an easy setup of your invoice, and then a custom doc. This is a customized invoice template where you have to go to your Word file. You can put all the standard default text, you can put it there. But I will not discuss this today. We will have that in another discussion perhaps. But today, to make this simpler, because this is just an introduction, we will start with the standard, okay? So what you see here, when you are activating Xero already gives you a standard default invoice template. So what you need to do is just simply edit this, okay? So this is what's showing in your screen. Sorry, let me just, okay. I don't know if you can see that. Okay, fine. So we can call this theme, so branding. So Xero would call this branding or theme. So you can select, you can create multiple branding or templates. Xero call them branding. In layman's, we call them templates. So we name this particular template as a standard. We use an A4 for the what we will use in paper when we print. You can select your own font and size, and then this particular fields, you need to put the right and the correct headers. Now, we have to follow the Middle East requirement for VAT, and therefore, many of this must be A with the word tax invoice, right? So we change it to tax. Tax. This would be tax credit note. Okay. Otherwise, you would not be full compliant. And this is, I think, true for all Middle East companies. So I would just change this draft PO, and then I leave this as the same. Okay, receipt. Now there are defaults here. If you want to show tax number, definitely you would want show the column headings. This we will do. Show item codes. So if you're doing inventory codes later, you can show that in your invoice. But normally I don't do that. Okay. Your logo will be in the right or in the left where you wanted to show it. Do you want to see the column for price and quantity? Do you want to see a cutaway of the advice? Yes or no? Normally, I don't do that. We show the tax column, yes, because this is required by the Middle East different countries VAT law. And then we show our registered address, and then we show our logo. So immediately the Xero copies our own logo. Do you want to hide? Normally I don't hide that. And then here, if you're using PayPal and you accept payment PayPal, you can select here, but you have to set up the PayPal before it so that the selection can be chosen here. We normally select tax components here, single tax account, tax components. Yeah. So this is tax components so that we see the breakdown of the tax. And then this one, we would see net amount of total tax. Now here, this is the information we want to show in our invoice. So for example, we wanted to communicate that if they're paying check, for example, if they're paying online transfer, you can put the bank details here. Now for codes, you can put the text for whatever, for the code you would want to include in your template later when you're printing a code. So now we are ready. That is the draft that we are creating right now. Voila, we have our own standard right now. We can copy another template and we can rename this something. Let's say blue template. Okay, we can do that. And then maybe we can do a different setup again. So in Xero, you can do 15 templates. Okay, you can do templates, a combination, whether it's a customized or a standard. So in some cases, you might need a pro forma invoices. Then you create a separate template for your pro forma. Then I will call it pro forma template. Okay. Otherwise, you can select now how you would want to define your templates. Next would be setting up your default. So if you have a supplier, what is your default? So let's say 10 days. And then your sales invoice would be 10 days as well. So these are just default. And then maybe you would say, this is your prefix for your invoice number. You can change that, just showing you that this is our text, and then you can just, maybe you have a different text for your prefix, you can choose that. Okay, so that's the default. And then your invoice setting is all ready. Okay, I'll go back. Invoice reminder. So Xero allows you to resend your invoices 7 days, 14 days. You can add as many as you would want until, 5 reminders. Okay, so maybe you would say 45 days. Yeah, so you can set up, if you take this would mean every invoices that you've created, and then in 7 days it's still not paid, your system will send a reminder automatically. And then on the 14th day, still not paid, send. So this helps us also in chasing our receivable. A very good tool for receivable management. Now you can set up the email template. in the email template settings in your Xero, which I'm going to the next part of the setup. Okay, now next would be the email settings. So Xero has provided us the default of our email settings. But first, you need to define when you are emailing from Xero, what email address will show up in your, for example, in your customer when you're sending the invoice. They will not see any email. It will just say and coming from Xero. But if your customer replies to that email, that reply goes to this email. So it's very important that you register which email that the reply will come back to. Here in the templates, Xero has provided already the basic templates, email templates, all of it. Now, if you would want to create, let's say I'll create a separate template for payment reminder, okay? I wanted to do a payment reminder for my sales invoice. So I call this template payment reminder. I would not select that as a default, but what I would do is this would be the heading of that email. So I'm showing now how are you going to create this email settings very quickly. Yeah, so this is the email settings that I want. So I'm sending and I'm saying soft reminder of your outstanding, showing the invoice as the heading, and it tells you that just in case you forgot, this is your invoice, you forgot this, you save this template, and that template is added in your email template setting, right? So I will show you the use of that once we go to the sales process later. So then we are done with the email settings. Now we go to one very important part of the setup, the tax rates. Now, what I would be showing you is how you actually and properly set up your Xero for UAE. Now, in Saudi, or I think it's only Saudi right now, I'm not, Bahrain maybe they're already in VAT, they would have a different kinds of tax item or VAT item. So the same process we're doing here would apply to those countries. So what I would do is to set up this as a company that has customer in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. So what I would want to do is edit this and change this to, no, I cannot do that because this is a system account. Okay, I'll start with this one. So I'll do UAE 5%, and then I'll put the 5% here. Then I'll do the sales. I'll edit the sales. So as you know, in UAE, you have a separate item for Dubai and Abu Dhabi. So what I would do is I would do one for Dubai. And then I would do another for Abu Dhabi. So I just click here, new. Sorry, I have to put the 5%. I forgot. Okay, so this I need to put the 5%. So when you want to edit this, you can just simply click these items. And then I'll have to put everything here, including UAE no VAT. Okay. And then I would do also UAE RCM 5%. Now you notice when I'm doing RCM, I'm putting that 0. Why? Because the way we're recording RCM here in Xero is it's automatically reversed. Okay. The same thing with your RCM service, it would also be, sorry, as import. I think I need to do import also. Okay, sorry. Just one more. Right. Again, I'll do that 0 because RCM in Xero, the way we account, we do not create a journal and then reverse that. What we do is at the point of entry, we automatically reverse that. Now, if you later, there's the point of taxation, okay, the point of sale or the date of supply would be different. When you're reversing, then you do a manual journal for that. Otherwise, generally, this is what we will do. Just one line 0, a 0%. So this is 0 rated, which is also 0. And then if you are dealing with VAT group, so what we do, you also create a VAT group, tax and then you put that 0, because if you're dealing with a related party that in the same group, technically you do not charge VAT to each other. But in Xero, when you are inputting data, a tax rate is required. So that your input for sales or purchase, for example, would be approved or accepted by, when you're inputting this and recorded, you have to select the right tax rate. So in our case for VAT group, you have to select this one. Notice that I'm using this 0 rate. Okay, so did I have everything else? Now, if you notice, I also do no UAE VAT. So just in case, like you have supplier invoices that does not qualify for tax input, then you would choose UAE no VAT. One final thing I would want to do as well is UAE VAT out of scope. Okay, so if you are in free zone, sometimes many of your transaction, okay, are out of scope. So that we'll be able to track all transactions that are out of scope, we create a VAT line for this, and then we will have a summary report on our sales tax report later. So then voila, that is, we have set up our tax rate. Okay, so now the next step would be setting up finally your chart. Is it chart of accounts? No, I'm going to the currencies first. So currencies, actually when you're setting up Xero, you have to follow the order that I am doing here, because some of the setup are preconditioned. You would notice that I'm doing the chart of account on the later part, because I have to set up first the tax rate, I have to set up first the fiscal year, I have to set up first the currency. So in your Xero, if you're not doing multi-currency, then your currency is only AED. But if you're doing a premium package, then you would need to, you have ability to add more currency. So what we wanted to do is, let's add euro, okay? Now you might notice, what is this xe.com? xe.com. So Xero has an automatic integration of the rates published in xe.com. Now, this might not be very practical for you if you are doing VAT later, no? Because we have to follow the central bank or the custom authority rates, no? We will follow that. But as a default, Xero will have this. Anyway, you can change that as if you would want. And then I would want to use USD. Sorry, I think I'm doing euro first. Okay, I add that, and then I can create another USD. Yeah. Now, if you don't want to link the currency from XE, just set up like this, and then when you're creating the invoice, you have to edit that the right currency conversion from there, not here. Now we have set up two currency here. Now we are ready to move to finally to no, we will have to do users first. So now we need to invite users to your organization. Like I said, it's a multi-user, so then you can add user to your group. So here I would invite, let's say I have a friend named Dexboard, and then his email is dexboard@gmail.com. Okay, now pay attention, because this is the point where I would explain the different access levels that you can share with your user. Now, Xero has a different module for projects. So if you're giving projects module to this user, you have to take this. Otherwise, you leave it unticked. We will discuss project sometime, but not in this webinar. 2, payroll admin. So if your user would need visibility of the payroll details, like the name of the employee, the salary, you have to share this access. Otherwise, you untick this so that although other users can look at the financial data, but cannot see the details of the salary. Now, Xero thinks that the payroll information are very sensitive, so it is only given to payroll administrators that the owners or who are authorized to have access to this information. Now, finally is your access to the accounting data. So we have 4 different access levels. The first one is the invoice only. This guy can only create draft. Okay, he can create draft, either draft only for sales, or he can do draft only for purchase. So if you have a separate sales control accountant and a separate expense control accountant, then you give them separately. But if you have only one accountant who does all the bills entry, draft. Okay, but if this guy, you can can also approve the bills and make payments, you can give him that. Okay? You can take this if you can put the bank account details of the customer or supplier. Okay? It's not very sensitive, but that's okay. Normally, it's option. It's okay to give or not okay. It will not affect how you access the information. So see here, the invoice only can never see the report. The published report cannot set lock dates and cannot add users. Okay? Now, if we want to have more, we give more access to these people, then we go standard, where most of the accountants will be given, meaning they can enter sales, purchases, payments, approve bills. Okay? They can also reconcile bank statement. They can do bulk reconciliation. They can edit. No, it's up to you. So normally, I would take bulk reconciliation statement line editing, because bulk reconciliation later, once we go to advanced course, that is a very effective way of reconciling. So here you can still give an option whether you can give him a report view or not. Okay, and then you can give him an option now if he can invite or not invite, okay, users. Advisor is the highest user level in Xero, where you can do everything, except that you can grant him an access to manage users or not, or you can give him payroll or not. Okay, so these are very independent. Now, who can give an advisor access? It is only the subscriber of your Xero organization. So if you are the one who's paying and it is in your name in the billing, you will be the subscriber and you would be able to give advisor access. If you are a read-only access, you cannot do anything except read only whatever sales and purchase already been recorded, the bank transaction and the reports, and you cannot touch any data, you cannot edit, you cannot add. Okay, so for this example, I would use pay run item and then send invite. Okay, send invite. So then Dexter board will receive an email. This is Dex board, right? Yep. So let's wait for Dex board to receive that email. So now your user, an invited user, would receive this email. What he will need to do is click this, okay? And then he will have to input, if he is a first-time user, he will have to input his credential for the first time and password, okay? So let's go back to that particular user. Okay, so done. Now we are going back to the settings and then finish off with the chart of accounts, finally. So when you're setting up Xero, Xero already will set up for you a default chart of accounts, which are most of the chart of accounts you will see here. Okay, it's already added. Now, Xero had put in the codes, it put in the sales account name, the type, and then the tax rate for each. So you see every chart of accounts will have a code, would have an account type and a rate. Okay, tax rate, which you can edit at any time. Now, there are three things you need to understand about chart of accounts of Xero. There is what you call system accounts. So if you see this one, these are system accounts. What do you mean by system accounts? These are chart of accounts put in by Xero because they are the corresponding account on a particular entry window. So let's say when you are creating an invoice, Xero is a single entry type of system, meaning when you're creating invoice, you just need to input one account. Why not two accounts when it is a double ledger, right? Debit and credit. But in the Xero, you would only require to put in one account. So in the case of sales invoice, you will see later, that is a credit account because the debit account is a system account. The same thing when you're creating a bill, when you're only required to input one account, which is a debit entry. You don't need to put what is the credit account because the credit account is a system account. So you cannot delete this account. You cannot change this. You can rename them, that's fine, but you cannot remove them because these are essential to the functions of the sum of the modules. Point number 2, there are two types of chart of accounts you would want to create. One would be an ordinary chart of account. Another would be a bank or bank type of chart of account. What's the difference? Okay, what's the difference for this? The bank account, when you create one, would allow you to add bank accounts in your bank account module. And when it is in your bank account module, you can perform processes like spend money, receive money, and transfer money. Okay? These particular data entry functions can only be used for bank account types. All other accounts would be ordinary accounts. So an example, when you're here, when Xero is giving you, it does not give you a bank account. So what we do is we create a bank account for your company. So maybe this company is doing Rock Bank, right? But by the way, I would show you what are the banks that Xero allows integration. So when you type UAE, these are the banks that allows you to integrate. Abu Dhabi Islamic Bank, Emirates Islamic Bank, ENBD, HSBC, Mashreq, and Rock Bank. Now, Rock Bank was the first one who did this in 3 years ago. So in our case, we're doing Rock Bank. Okay, we select Rock Bank. We put the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1. And then account with this 101. This is the account code. Sorry, my mistake. This would be here. And then I would say Rock Bank AED. That's the name of the account. You select the right currency because you have a Rock Bank, might be a Euro account and a USD account. You have to create that separately if they have different currency. So in this case, I'm setting up a Rock Bank AED. Now, look at how the bank feeds automatically requires you to complete. So here, if you have an online Rock Bank, it would ask you to set up this password, and then a token will be given to you, and then you can connect to your bank, and then your bank sends every day the transactions. Take note, only the transactions. You cannot transfer in your bank using Xero. You have to go to your online bank for that. So, okay, so I would just say next here, and then I leave that to back so that we would not be able. So I would not continue that because we don't have a credential here. But what I would do would be Rock Bank AED. Okay, I'll add it anyway. I'm not using the link. So this is just a manual. It's not a bank feed type of entry. 101. And then the type would be others. And then account number would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is how you do it if your bank does not link to your online, if your bank is not one of those bank feed enabled in Xero. So again, you select the currency. So I do that, I save that. Sorry, what is this? Must be a unique name. So what I would do is, I think I've created that already. So I would do is a petty cash account. Now, why would you create a petty cash from here? Because we would advise that if you have a cash fund, you create that not as an ordinary account, but create that as a bank account. That's the technique here. Why? Because when you are managing petty cash, it's better to use this directly instead of creating invoice and bills. You can use these functions directly, and it's more faster to record petty cash and replenishments expenses. Okay, so I'll do that. Okay, it will not allow us because it has already created the previous account. Now, when you are back to the chart of account, you will see that we have successfully created the two types of bank accounts, right? The cash and the bank. Now, let's do a quick creation of the normal. So what I would do, I would want to create advances staff. So that's the type I would use. Then let's say I would say 11 here. That's the code. Okay, that's available. Then advances to staff, which is a current asset. And then you can put a description you want. Normally, I would just copy that. Then select what would be the default account. So maybe no VAT for that account. Then you can select show dashboard or enable payment or show expense claim. Now, normally you don't do show expense claim because that features you have to pay separately. But you would want to click here. The reason being is that you would want to show this, the transaction or the balance of this chart of account in your dashboard. I will show you that later. Next would be you need to enable this if you want to use this particular account as an option for payment account. So normally when you're paying invoices and bill, you would only need to use banks and cash fund. That would be the one that's showing up in your dropdown. But if you add those accounts, then you would enable this. So for now, I would enable this so that we would reference later to that, the sales and the purchases later. So here I've added already my chart of account, and now we are ready. Did I miss anything else? Reminder setting, tax setting, so it's there already. Now finally would be tracking. So what is tracking? Now, if many of you have experience with accounting software, many of the existing accounting software allows us to do profit centers, like cost centers. Now in Xero, they call it tracking, meaning you can categorize transaction according to categories, right? So one example would be if you are a restaurant and you have 2 branches, it would be nice if you can track the P&L for each of this branch, right? So to do that, you would need to create a tracking category for branch. And then you would say, I have branch 1, and then maybe you have another branch 2. So then you can have as 1,000 options. No, you can have as 1,000 options or branches, in our case here, per each category. Now in Xero allows us maximum 2 categories. So you cannot do a third one. So we can do a second one. Let's say department, right? We can say location or country. You can do that, or business unit. That's the popular tracking options you can do. So let's say I have a department 1 and then a department 2. Okay. Now again, you can do 1,000 department as maximum. So then you're safe. Now we are all now done with our setup with Xero. We are now ready to create or start recording transactions.